This is the Insta One R 1-inch version, and Insta One sent this out to me to take a look at. And I already destroyed one of these. Like literally, I obliterated it. So I'm on my second one. But to be fair, I did buy this one. This is the one that Insta One gave me, which I broke. But we're talking about the 1-inch version and whether or not this is any good for FPV. Watching OriginaldoBo, and today we're talking about the Insta One R 1-inch version for FPV. I've been using this for the past 5 days as my sole camera that I have flown on my Source One. I actually started flying on another quad, but I destroyed that quad in the process. That's how I broke that, but I digress. Anyways, this is the Insta One R, and I have used this for FPV over the past 5 days. Now, this video may not appeal to everybody that is looking to buy this Insta One 1-inch sensor, but for the select few that are curious as to whether or not this could deliver professional results for you, you may want to stick around. And even if you don't fly FPV, there is some good information in here about how this camera reacts at high speeds. So I've been basically using this in all sorts of various situations. From daylight to nighttime, I have flown the Insta One R exclusively. And I gotta say, this camera has really impressed me. For starters, this sensor is amazing, and the sensor is a 19 megapixel 1-inch f3.2 sensor, and it's pretty incredible. It's capable of shooting up to 5K 30 frames per second, which puts it right on par with the Hero 9. Matter of fact, this had 5K before the Hero 9 was ever even announced, and yeah, it's actually pretty good. Now, Insta One has put out several updates to the One R camera system, and they continue to put updates out that help improve it and give it new features to make it much more robust. This is probably the most versatile camera system if you are somebody who does fly FPV, simply because it's modular. You're not necessarily stuck with one type of camera. So the 1-inch camera is impressive. It's impressive, and where this camera really does shine is in low light situations. Now, I did do some low light flights with this, and that was actually the first thing I did with the Insta One R, was took it out and flew at nighttime, and that's actually how I destroyed the first sensor, was doing freestyle. And I'll just get this right out of the way. If you are looking for a camera to do freestyle with, do not get the 1-inch version. Don't buy the 1-inch version. Just get the 4K version, because that's going to be a lot more durable and not so much of a target, because this lens that's on the front of here is a massive target. It screws on and off, and it's just one hit and you're breaking that filter. I've already broke one filter, and you can see I have glass all over my desktop from it. And I actually broke the camera to where probably can't hear it, but there's something rattling inside of there, so there's that. But here's some low light samples that I took. I did do a dive with this on a building, and I actually did the dive back to back with the same drone, one with the Hero 9 and then one with the Insta One R. And I gotta say, the results from the Insta One R at night are absolutely incredible. Take a look at this footage. So yeah, nighttime, camera's absolutely amazing, and I don't think you'll find much better. One of the biggest Achilles heels of GoPros, or any action camera for that matter, has been the nighttime shots. Stabilization breaks apart, and you get a lot of grainy, artifacting looking footage when you get it back into your editor. And you would typically have to do a tremendous amount of noise reduction with the footage to make it any bit useful. But that's where flow state stabilization benefits the Insta One R. Because you are stabilizing after the fact, you're able to get really super clean footage directly into the camera, take it back to the Insta360 Studio, stabilize it, remove any additional grain, and it doesn't really take too much longer to actually edit out that footage. But how does this camera do during the day? Because that's probably where most of you are going to be flying, and that's probably why most of you are curious about this sensor. Can it deliver you professional-like results? And this is sort of a yes and no answer, because I'm gonna have to get some more footage shot with this. But in my early testing with this, I do find that the auto exposure to be a little bit too aggressive, and it changes a little bit too dramatically depending on the scene when the camera is set to auto. Put the camera in manual and it's definitely much better, but there needs to be a way to lock down the exposure value on the camera, which I don't see any way to do that as of right now. This is something that I would like to see Insta360 add, is the ability to lock the exposure, just so we get a nice even playing field. Now for all this footage I shot some in the standard color profile and some in vivid. I feel like vivid just tries to do this sort of HDR look to footage, and I didn't really like it. So for me, I feel like standard works great, and if you're not happy with the saturation, just add a little bit in post. Now the log profile is interesting because it's actually a true log profile, and it works incredibly well. And it gave me a good amount of dynamic range where I was able to preserve the highlights and also the shadow details as well. But if you look closely at some of these trees, there is some over sharpening happening here that just doesn't look all that natural. And if you look even further out into the distance at some of these palm trees that I was filming, it's just got some mushy details for some reason. Now, that could be fixed in software, of course, but it's just something I wanted to point out. I didn't really notice those issues specifically when I used my GoPro, but I guess every scene that you shoot or film is going to be a little bit different. Now, I don't find that there'd be much use in filming in 5K for just a normal project, unless you want some of them really, really super crisp details, or you plan on punching in after the fact. But all in all, I find that 4K 60 seems to be the perfect sweet spot for me when using this camera. I did get some ND filters from Freewell for this. I'll make sure I have a link in the description below. It's definitely a must if you are going to film in manual to get yourself some filters. Now, because this camera is modular, there are some really interesting things you can do with this. And with FPV specifically, I have seen people make a mod to where they can remove the battery from this, and they are now using it powered directly from a BEC. I don't know if there is an adapter or something like that, but it does shave off a pretty good amount of weight when you take that battery off. The other nice thing about it is, like I said, it's modular. If you do crash with this, you can just pull it apart and replace your broken parts. So if you replace if you break the main module, you just replace it. If you break the sensor, you just replace it. And the fact that you have 3 different sensors to choose from, the 4K, the 360, and the 1-inch module, means that you can basically have 3 cameras all in one. Now, I found that the battery life is pretty damn good. It definitely is better than that of my GoPro. The only bummer is it's sort of a pain in the butt to charge it, because you have to have everything connected and connect it to this, charging via USB-C. I didn't even look at their website to see if they had a charging bay, but if they did, that would be really helpful if you have multiple of those batteries. But I'm getting roughly about, I want to say about an hour to 2 hours worth of video clips out of here before the SD card fills up. Now, speaking about the SD card, you do have to have this formatted in a specific way. It's exFAT format to be able to use this. I noticed that if I tried to put an SD card in from my GoPro, it would not read the SD card until I formatted it. So it's not the same type of format that you're gonna find in other drones. And don't make the mistake that I made and take your goggle SD card out, put it in the drone, and then try to put it back to watch the footage, because it will not work, and it will corrupt the footage and or format it on you automatically, which is not a good thing. So you don't want to do that. So just something I wanted to point out, that the SD card situation is still a little bit goofy. Now, Insta360 did make it to where you don't have to use their Insta360 Studio after flying, which means you can just take the footage and throw it directly onto Facebook, Instagram, or whatever, One of the nice things that they do include on the SD card is 2 copies of the footage. One pro copy, which is a full resolution, and one low res copy, which allows you to quickly transfer over to your smartphone if you want to share that to social media in a hurry. So that is something that I find pretty useful. And I used it a couple of times when I was out flying. I wanted to just, get a quick shot and show somebody. And that was definitely handy. But all in all, I'm pretty impressed with the Insta One R. I will definitely continue using this at nighttime. I think the shots are incredible, and the capability that this camera has specifically is really, really useful. I do plan on putting out a full cinematic video with the Insta One R, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss that footage when it does drop. And if you guys are interested in some of the log footage that I shot, I can go ahead and upload it, so that way you can try it out for yourself. It was shot in 5K 24 frames per, I'm sorry, 5K 30 frames per second actually. So if you're interested in trying the log footage out to see how it grades and whether or not this camera is right for you, let me know and I'll put a link up to where you can play with that footage. But that's gonna do it. If you enjoyed, there's a link in the description below where you can pick up an Insta One R for yourself. I believe they do have a sale coming up on Black Friday actually. Although I don't know if are we doing that? I don't even know. Nobody tells me anything. But anyways, that's gonna do it. If you enjoyed, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you already haven't, and I will see you in the next video. Stay original and don't break a bunch of shit like I do.